the council chambers. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is the public hearing and public meeting of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills number 250195, 250196, 250197, 250198, 250199, 250200, 250201, 250202, 250210, 250211, 250212, and resolution number 250214. Ms. Lawhead, will you please take the roll for attendance?
Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Gautier. Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Young. Councilmember Driscoll. Councilmember Lozada. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Phillips. Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Harity. Councilmember Ahmad. Councilmember Landau. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember O'Rourke. Council President Johnson.
Present. Thank you. A quorum of this committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. Ms. Lawhead, will you please read the title of the resolutions, please?
Bill number 250195, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250196, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2026. Bill number 250197, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal 2026 capital budget. Bill number 250198, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2026 through 2031 inclusive. Bill number 250199, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes to revise tax rates and end certain exclusions from the tax on receipts and all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250200, an ordinance amending Chapter 12100, the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code to revise the fee for the use of the parking meters, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250201, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1800 of the Philadelphia Code entitled School Tax Authorization to provide for an increase in the tax that the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia is authorized to impose on real estate, and amending Chapter 19-1300 entitled Real Estate Taxes to establish an equivalent reduction in the tax rate for the city real estate tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250202, an ordinance amending Section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to eliminate certain exemptions, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250210, an ordinance amending Section 10101, the Philadelphia Code entitled Fees of Commissioner of Records to increase the portion of fees for the recording of deeds, mortgages, and relating documents to be used for housing trust fund purposes under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250211, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Realty Transfer Tax by revising the rate of the tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250212, an ordinance to amend Chapter 19-4400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Development Impact Tax to end imposition of the tax under certain terms and conditions. And finally, resolution number 250214, resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2026 through 2030 and incorporating revisions with respect to fiscal year 2025, which is to be submitted by the mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement by and between the city and the authority.
Thank you very much. Today we begin the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 2026, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2031. Today we will hear testimony from the administration on the 5-year plan. We also have the Department of Labor on standby for questions as well. They will not read their testimony, but they will be available for questioning. I want to also welcome the administration as well as the departments who will be joining us for this testimony today. Ms. Lawhead, would you please call the first witness to testify from the administration?
Tiffany Thurman, Chief of Staff to Mayor Parker.
Good morning, Council President Johnson and members of City Council. My name is Tiffany Thurman, and I have the honor of serving as Chief of Staff to Mayor Parker. I'm honored to testify in support of the Mayor's operating budget for fiscal year 2026, Bill number 250196, and the proposal FY 2026 through 2030 5-year plan, resolution number 250214. Along with the supporting budget and revenue bills introduced on March 13th. Joining me today are my colleagues, Chief Deputy Mayor Sincere Harris and Vanessa Garrett-Harley, Finance Director Rob DeBoe, Budget Director Sabrina Maynard, Cabinet members, and department heads from across the administration. The proposed 5-year plan builds on the historic investments we made together in the fiscal year 2025 One Philly budget to pursue our shared vision of Philadelphia and delivering tangible results that residents and businesses can see, touch, and feel. The proposed 5-year plan includes $2.3 billion in new operating investments and almost $1.5 billion in new capital investments over 6 years. This is an ambitious proposal that will continue to advance key initiatives underway, elevating 5 critical priorities around housing, fair and fiscal responsible multi-year contracts for city workers, tax reform, the wellness ecosystem, and preparing for special events in FY 2026. The proposed plan also balances the major investments in these priorities with an ongoing commitment to the city's fiscal stability. Despite the end of the American Rescue Plan Act, funds last calendar year, and a legacy pension obligation bond balloon payment due in fiscal year 2029, the plan builds reserves that meet our internal goal of at least 6 to 8% in each of the next 5 years. This is an improvement over last year's plan. All of these steps have been carefully measured amid an uncertain federal and economic environment. As with everything we've accomplished together so far, collaboration with this council, state and federal partners, organized labor, businesses, and neighborhood and community leaders will be paramount. Only as one Philly, a united city, will we be successful. As Mayor Parker laid out in yesterday's housing address, this 5-year plan includes 2 $400 million borrowings as part of an overall $2 billion financing strategy for the Housing Opportunities Made Easy or HOME initiative. As every member of the body knows well, access to safe, quality housing that is affordable and meets an urgent need for thousands of residents, both homeowners and renters, and for Philadelphians across income bands is important. This is why prior approaches to housing, the standard operating procedure, will not suffice to meet the need. We have with us today Chief Housing and Urban Development Officer Angela Brooks, Director of Planning and Development Jesse Lawrence, and Chief of Staff John Monlack, who would be happy to discuss further the details of the proposed housing plan. During this budget process, we cannot stress enough how intergovernmental and cross-sector collaboration will be instrumental, dare I say paramount, in reaching the 30,000 housing units that need to be built or preserved across the city. City workforce. With regard to the city workforce, Chief Administrative Officer Camille Duchesset and Chief Human Relations Officer Candy Jones have been working intensively with departments to change the way we recruit, train, and retain public employees. This work will continue until we've addressed the vacancy rates that have persisted for years in the city. That said, the city's headcount has increased from the end of fiscal year 2024, marking a continued departure from the decreasing headcounts in recent years. From the end of June through December, the city's general fund headcount increased by 573 people, suggesting that the targeted investments we're making in recruitment and retention are paying off. We've also made this progress as several thousand employees return to office, creating better opportunities to collaborate and innovate together. We're especially grateful to Commissioner Joe Brasky and the team at Public Property who supported this transition so effectively and continue to upgrade city workplaces. Meanwhile, Chief Deputy Mayor Sincere Harris and our labor team are working to negotiate fair, fiscally responsible, multi-year contracts with the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 5, International Association of Firefighters Local 22, and AFSCME District Councils 33 and 47. The 5-year plan includes a $550 million labor reserve as the administration continues to work through negotiations. This is the largest labor reserve in the city's history. Turning now to tax reform. Tax investments and job creation is important to Mayor Parker and our team, and we're also grateful for the leadership of President Johnson and this body and the members of the Tax Reform Commission for their efforts in recent months. Following the guidance of the Commission, this administration is proposing historic changes to the city's business and wage taxes, with dramatic savings on the horizon from a pension fund that will be fully funded in fiscal year 2033. We're in an unprecedented position to significantly decrease both the gross receipts and net income portions of the business income and receipts tax over the next 5 years, while codifying further reductions to eliminate the former and cut the latter in half by fiscal year 2039, 7 years after the pension fund reaches full funding, which is important to our administration. At the same time, we'll restart steady decreases in the wage tax from fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2030. This would be the first time in 17 years that a mayor and city council have concurrently reduced all these rates in the same year, and with the long-term certainty that businesses need. This is a key priority to increasing access to economic opportunity by attracting, retaining, and growing businesses that will create jobs with family-sustaining wages. Boosting the city's competitiveness in today's economy through tax investments is a major lever to growing the economic pie and putting more Philadelphians on a path to self-sufficiency. Now is the time to jumpstart business growth and job creation for Philadelphians. Turning now to wellness ecosystem. For those Philadelphians who are among the most vulnerable, the new Riverview Wellness Village is already providing comprehensive care, treatment, and supportive housing thanks to the $100 million approved by City Council in fiscal year 2025. The Wellness Village is a centerpiece of a campus that will, with the investments in the proposed plan, eventually be able to host 640 residents and support them with medical care and clinical support, as well as education, workforce development, and other on-site programming. Staff in the Managing Director's Office, including the Capital Programs Office, Procurement Department, Department of Behavioral and Intellectual Disability Services, and other agencies have worked tirelessly, including L&I, to create this new capacity. The fifth of the new major investments areas lifted up in the proposed plan is the acceleration of preparations for 2026. This council and numerous other key stakeholders have diligently kept this work in the forefront of our minds as the first of the major events begin later this year. This fiscal year 2026 budget puts forth another $40 million on top of the nearly $60 million already committed to ensure Philadelphia realizes the full potential and benefits of the special events in 2026 and bringing the total investments for preparations to $100 million. And this is part of the $500 million put forth together to work at the Philadelphia International Airport with travelers in waiting areas, roadways, and signage, SEPTA platforms, video surveillance, and other improvements to ensure a top-class guest experience. Our thanks goes out to City Representative and Special Events Director Giselle Jones, 2026 Director Michael Numis, and so many others who are working the long hours to ensure we're making history yet again. These major investments in housing, labor, tax reform, wellness, and 2026 preparations will help shape our city's future. At the same time, we're pressing forward hard on key initiatives and programs across our mainstay priority pillars: public safety, clean and green, economic opportunity, education, and core support, each of which have new targeted investments in the 5-year plan. We also have with us today Managing Director Adam Teal, City Solicitor Renee Garcia, Chief Public Safety Director Adam Geer, Public Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel, Director Carlton Williams of the Office of Clean and Green Initiatives, Director Alba Martinez from the Commerce Department, Chief Administrative Officer Camille Duchesset, Chief Education Officer Dr. Deborah Carrera, and other senior administration leaders who look forward to discussing further with you the massive amount of exciting work underway. Our shared vision remains steadfast: to make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, and greenest big city in the nation, with access to economic opportunity for all. On behalf of Mayor Sherrell Parker and our entire team, thank you for your partnership and the opportunity to present our testimony. We have also submitted testimony for the Mayor's Office and the Department of Labor. Council President, I'd like to ask Octavia Howell to provide testimony on the fiscal year 2026 capital budget and FY 26 through 30 capital program, after which we and our colleagues are here today and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Council President Johnson and members of City Council. I am Octavia Howell, Executive Director of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm joined by my colleagues from finance and from departments across the city. We're here to present for your review and consideration the recommended capital program for fiscal years 2026 to 2031 and the capital budget for fiscal year 2026. These budgetary proposals were approved by the Planning Commission on March 11th, 2025. The Parker administration's inaugural recommended capital program and budget strove to make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, and greenest big city in America, with access to economic opportunity for all. The recommended fiscal year 26 to 31 capital program and the fiscal year 26 capital budget represent the administration's continued commitment to advancing that vision. The recommended program is a 6-year plan for investing in neighborhood and community facilities like parks, libraries, and recreation centers, specialized vehicles, including medic units and trash compactors, repairs to city streets and sidewalks, maintenance of city-owned buildings, and technological infrastructure. The recommended budget reflects the spending appropriations for the first year of the 6-year program, as both the program and budget are key instruments of planned physical development by city agencies and institutional partners. The Philadelphia Home Rule Charter directs that their initial preparation and submission to the mayor be a function of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. Beginning in October 2024, Planning Commission and Budget Office staff received and evaluated funding requests from 22 city departments. We then worked with each of these departments to produce a capital program and budget that aligns with the administration's priorities, addresses the city's capital needs and long-term goals, and reflects the city's financial resources and spending capacity. The resulting 6-year capital program recommends over $1.4 billion in new city tax-supported general obligation bond funding to support public improvements throughout Philadelphia. When possible, city funds are used to leverage additional resources provided by regional, state, federal, and private partners. Considering all sources of funding, including self-sustaining aviation or water funds and carry-forward appropriations from prior years, the recommended capital program proposes $17.8 billion in total improvements. For fiscal year 2026, the recommended capital budget calls for $337 million of new general obligation bond funding. The recommended budget makes critical infrastructure investments while reflecting the city's financial constraints and ability to support new debt service. For fiscal year 2026, the recommended capital budget, the fiscal years 2026 to 31 recommended capital program and budget include $122.1 million in fiscal year 26, and $752.9 million over the full program for Clean and Green. This funding area prioritizes energy efficiency retrofits, sanitation facilities and equipment, improvements to city parks, trails, pools, and playgrounds, and investments at Lemon Hill in anticipation of the FIFA World Cup Fan Fest. Funds for street paving, ADA ramps, traffic calming, and Vision Zero are also recommended to ensure the residents can safely access these amenities, which improve the quality of life in Philadelphia and make all neighborhoods cleaner, greener, and more vibrant. We recommend $119.2 million in fiscal year 26 and $288.7 million over the full program for public safety. These include investments in the Riverview Wellness Center to complete a new tower, a multi-year project to renovate the Fire Academy, critical improvements to the city's prisons, fire, and police facilities, and replacements of fire vehicles. These recommended investments will increase public safety across the city. $47.1 million in fiscal year 26 and $180.7 million over the full program for core support. Recommended capital investments for core support include information technology upgrades to optimize and streamline the city's financial and procurement systems, improvements to city-owned vehicle fueling and electric charging safety stations, and safety improvements to municipal buildings. $29.2 million in fiscal year 26 and $145 million over the full program for economic opportunity. To expand access to opportunity for all, the Planning Commission recommends capital investments in neighborhood commercial corridors throughout the city, critical repairs and maintenance of improvements to local public transit infrastructure, unlocking state and federal grants and matching funds, industrial and waterfront land redevelopment, including the continuation of the I-95 CAT project. And $19.7 million in fiscal year 26 and $98.7 million over the full program for education. This priority advances investment in city-owned facilities at the Zoo, Free Library, African American Museum, as well as cultural institutions including the Mann, the Dell, the Please Touch Museum, and the Art Museum. We are pleased to propose these investments, which balance fiscal constraints of the city with the immense needs of its physical plant. The recommended City New CN general obligation bond funded spending in our recommended capital program and budget is higher than in previous years, reflecting the city's efforts to invest in its aging infrastructure while also investing in infrastructure for new initiatives. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We would be happy to address any questions that you may have regarding the recommended fiscal year 26 to 31 capital program and the fiscal year 26 capital budget.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And also, we will be doing 3-minute per member each round, just to make sure everybody gets your questions in. First question I want to start off with is regarding the 5-year plan, and the question is to Mr. Rob DeBoe regarding job growth and development as a part of 5-year plan. How you doing, Rob? How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Can't complain. So I remember during our fiscal stability hearing, I talked about how last year's 5-year plan gave a forecast of negative job growth, right, based upon S&P Global Market Intelligence, the consulting firm that we use. And so I just want to get an idea as we move forward. Kind of you talked about that will be adjusted, that approach will be adjusted. What are we doing as a city to attract more jobs as relates to us eliminating poverty through job creation and development?
So I'll take what we project part and then hand it back over to the Chief of Staff or the Commerce Director to talk about what we're doing to try to attract jobs. So in the 5-year plan, Based on feedback we got from our econometric firm, IHS Global Insight, and a meeting we had down at the Fed, economists, we're projecting relatively flat growth for jobs over the 5 years. 4 of the 5 years have small growth, and 1 year has a small decline. Kind of based on all the economic uncertainty that we're seeing and the feedback we got, those are the projections in our plan. I see the Commerce Director coming up to talk about what we're doing.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martinez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's my honor to be here. So on the question of job growth, I'll start by saying that the commitment of this administration and council to do something around tax competitiveness is going to be really critical to stimulate and spur growth. And the fact that businesses will be able to project their obligations is extraordinarily important. And, you know, I personally, this is a Commerce Director speaking, if we can accelerate the rate of growth of revenue and jobs and wages, we can always look at accelerating the speed at which we fund, fully fund our pension fund and reduce taxes, more quickly. So I'll start there. The second thing I'll say is that our investments in workforce are really critical, and this budget makes a big commitment to the workforce space. And it is also, this budget, this 5-year plan and this coming budget also will make an extraordinary commitment to the idea of positioning Philadelphia as a business hub, as a world-class business hub. It will be the first time where we're proactively marketing Philadelphia as a business hub. This work is underway. We call it the Brand Attraction Campaign. And I look forward to sharing more details about our aggressive work across the board in Commerce testimony. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to do an overview of when you take into account part of your testimony, Tiffany, you talked about the work that has been done, the investment around the recruitment and the retention of filling out vacancies. Most folks may or may not know that the vacancies plays a major role in terms of how much we take in terms of our overall budget, and is calculated in terms of how much we have available. I know 2 members in this body, particularly Councilwoman Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson and Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson and Majority Whip Isaiah Thomas worked on a working group to address the vacancy issue. And so just do a double back on what that looks like. You talked about some growth in that area and maybe put some dollars and cents around that figure.
Absolutely, and so I'll give the top line, and then I'm going to ask our new Chief HR Officer, Candy Jones, to come up, as well as Camille Dussachet, who heads our CAO unit. So,
and one additional follow-up, and just give me an idea of also, we know with the federal government laying off a lot of individuals in the city of Philadelphia, and the mayor stepped up and said, well, we have vacancies, and went on and did a recruitment tour. I want to get an idea of also how did that work in terms of, because I had several constituents who called me who lost their jobs. And so that particular initiative gave people a safety net, one opportunity to come work for the city of Philadelphia. So please give us an update on that as well.
Absolutely. So we've been very, very intentional over the last year in our recruitment efforts, not just in the traditional sense of posting on the traditional platforms like LinkedIn and through social media. We've also been very intentional in using, doing ad buys and deploying radio station ads, talking about, the opportunity to come and join the workforce. We also have a mobile unit that goes out and does hiring fairs where people can go onto this bus of sorts and apply in real time for critically needed positions, hard to fill positions. So we've been really intentional in that. We've seen a decrease in our vacancy rates overall, and we've also been intentional seeing what's happening at the federal level, doing recruitment fairs. We had a recruitment initiative, a fair that we did down in DC earlier this year, and then we had another one that occurred just last week. Candy Jones will now take over and talk about the number of job fairs that we've had to date and where those numbers are. But I will say I'm proud to share that we've hired a significant amount of people over the last year, closing that vacancy rate. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start just generally about the vacancy rate. So as of March 2025, we have about 5,700 vacancies. So that closes the gap to about 17%, whereas the prior vacancy rate was about 19%. Our application numbers are increasing significantly, partially due to the Philly on the Move campaign with the hiring bus, and also our recruitment efforts in billboards and digital advertising at the airport and at the stadiums. We've increased our application count from 53,000 applications in 2023 to over 60,000 applications in 2024. In 2024, we've attended over 155 events and engaged over 3,000 candidates. And since January of 2025, we've already attended over 25 events, also in partnership with some of the council members to do very targeted recruitment in some of the districts. For the federal recruitment events, we've had 2 events, one in January and just one this past week. We've engaged over 250 potential employees that are either in transition or looking to transition from the federal government. So at this time, the Office of Human Resources is kind of intentionally creating partnerships with those candidates who've come out to our events and some of those who have not made it to align them with city department heads and leaders so that we can make intentional connections and fill some of those vacancies.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up, but the chair at this moment recognizes Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson.
I don't know what's going to sing. Thank you. Thank you very much, Council President. I just had a point of clarification. I was trying to take notes on what you were stating. If you could just repeat for me the amount of vacancies and then repeat for me the actual percentage that you notated, and based on what I thought I heard, if you could just for the record tell us for FY '24 and '25 the budgeted vacancy rate versus the actual vacancy rate. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
So as of March of 2025, there are 5,791 vacancies, which is approximately 17% of the vacancy rate. I apologize, I missed the next question.
Based on what I thought I heard you state, if you could just, for the record, notate what the budgeted vacancy rate and the actual vacancy rate is for FY '24 and FY '25.
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can certainly follow up with those. Okay, you're welcome.
And I do know that we have a hearing coming up with CAO and OHR, so we're prepared to certainly follow up in writing, but then answer any further questions you have during that hearing as well. But really proud that we were able to decrease the vacancy rate to 17%, and that number will continue to decline as Candy Jones and her team continues to be intentional about our recruitment efforts here locally.
Can we expand that mobile bus? Like we have one, but based upon the sense of urgency in addressing the issue of poverty through job creation, could we possibly maybe get 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, maybe 1 per council district?
Listen, the demand calls for that. The demand calls for that, so we will not say no to that. Absolutely.
Because, so there's a $10 million investment for workforce. Could somebody give a detail on what that $10 million in this budget are going to be for?
Absolutely. I'll call on now Camille Duchesset, our Chief Administrative Officer.
Good morning. Camille Duchesset, Chief Administrative Officer. The $10 million allocation or ask is relative to this considerable work that we're doing in terms of workforce development. The City College for Municipal Employment, while it is a bespoke program that has partnerships with the Community College of Philadelphia, it's also the umbrella for our workforce development efforts. So this is making sure that we have partnerships with all of the stakeholders throughout the city, our labor partners, the philanthropic community, the School District of Philadelphia, as well as CCP. This, we really have a comprehensive plan for ensuring that we are not leaving any stone unturned, and that we are leveraging the talent within the city of Philadelphia to fill our workforce needs. In combination with the work of CCME, we are working very closely with the Office of Human Resources, the Commerce Department, to leverage all of the existing partnerships that we have and create new partnerships.
Can you give me an update on where we're at with the municipal college.
Sure.
Initiatives, engagement.
Sure. So we are very early in. As you know, we stood up CCME in September. We launched September of 2024. Successfully, we had a first cohort that included approximately 75 students across 3 different program areas: IT, our health services specialist, and our administrative officers, administrative support staff, right? The administrative professional program was the first and only thus far to be completed. The candidates in that program are in the process of interviewing for municipal employment, and so we're hoping by spring we will have the first cohort of programs completed and have better numbers for you, more accurate numbers, but the response was extremely positive with very little by way of advertisement. There was a lot of word of mouth. We had just under 1,000 candidates express interest. Again, we are constantly in, and again, the funding would go pretty far with expanding the programs that we're able to offer. We are aligning the programs that we create to the vacancies that are existing and have been critical and difficult for us to fill traditionally in the city. And so we are moving forward with things like paramedic, our EEO professionals, and of course, we continue to partner with prisons and the police department to ensure that we are creating spaces to upskill and provide on-ramp and pathways to employment in those areas where we have significant vacancies.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, you know, my single light focus is around job growth and development to specifically tackle poverty, right? Erase that moniker as being the largest poorest city in America, and I believe this administration, this body, is at the right time in history to actually erase that moniker. And so that's why I want to get some additional follow-up questions, particularly around those particular issues, which before I turn over to my colleagues, I just want to talk about FY26 celebration. You know, the world will be watching us. So I want to get an idea, one, I know we did a mid-year transfer, the exact amount that we transferred just for the record, and then also how much is in this budget to supporting the celebration, the 250 celebration, but most importantly, just making sure that the dollars that are transferred, the dollars that are budgeted, that the organizations that they're going to are equitable across the board. So as we celebrate the birthplace of America, and we celebrate you know, Betsy Ross and Rocky, we still also supporting Paul Robeson and Joe Frazier within the same context, right? And these organizations that are out there doing this same work. And so as I observe and pay attention to this process, and I talk to different people, you know, they want to make sure they're a part of it, and that this process is very, very inclusive while we're utilizing the taxpayers' dollars to celebrate the birthplace of America. So we want to celebrate everybody and make sure everybody has a seat at the table and advocating, promoting, and participating in the celebration. So can I just get an update on where we're at?
Absolutely, and we have Budget Director Sabrina Maynard for any additional details, but generally speaking, specifically speaking, Councilman, you're absolutely correct. The administration is proud to have already devoted over $60 million towards celebrating 2026, but we're not done. So that's why you'll see in FY26 we call for an additional $40 million, so over $100 million in investments that the city is putting to making sure that we have the best celebration and put on the biggest party in America. The birthplace of America was here, and we're going to make sure that we shine, and Philadelphia is adequately reflected. But that entails addressing 2026 investments from a three-pronged standpoint, making sure that all of the events are exciting. So we get kicked off this summer with the Club World Cup, rolling into the fall with the 250th founding, the anniversary of the 250th founding of the U.S. Marines and Navy. So actually events start this year, and we are prepared to meet that challenge. Then we have a great New Year's Eve 2026 extravaganza planned for New Year's Eve.
And of course, in 2026, we have the semi-sesquicentennial, which is a lot to say, and it's just a fancy way of saying celebrating America's 250th birthday on July 4th of next year. And then we also have the MLB MLB All-Star Game taking place here. So while we have those big events, we're also going to be having and sponsoring and partnering with organizations that will be putting on smaller events across the city. So we have the events that are happening in terms of the special events, but we also are significantly invested, as you will see, in the security around those events. And that can't be taken lightly. We've seen the headlines, we've seen this past New Year's Eve and some of the unfortunate attacks that have happened in other cities. We want to make sure that Philadelphia is more than prepared to meet this moment. We want to have fun, but we got to make sure our residents are safe. And then last but not least, it touches on what you mentioned. Our approach has been to make sure that, yes, we know downtown there's going to be a lot of things going on. Center City is going to be a poppin' place. But that's not all. For the Parker administration, our priority is making sure that every neighborhood feels the lasting impact of the 2026 experience. So from Uptown to Southwest Philly and Nicetown and Overbrook and Northeast, we're going to be focusing on commercial quarters and partnering with organizations that are, yes, the traditional arts and cultures organization that we all know and love, but some of those community groups, and you'll see that as we continue through this budget and beyond.
Thank you. Sabrina, were you about to?
That was a great summary.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Councilmember Curtis Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to cut all of the flattery I wanted to give all of them off of my time. But I would be remiss in not thanking the mayor for putting together this team. I call you my musketeers, of which Porthos is the budget director who has been here 23 budget testimonies. Rob DeBoe is an amazing steward of the budget.
Wait, before you start giving them props, we gotta get our stuff first.
Well, yeah, all right. So I just didn't want to come off my time. But
Go ahead, Member Jones.
what I want to say to you is that I am proud of what the direction this city is going in. I listened to Mayor Parker's projections on housing, and you don't have to answer this question, but I want to know that you are contemplating the answer to this question. All of these projections depend on what number 47 actually, does up in the White House. And I want to know and be assured that there is a plan B so that this modest surplus that we have is in position to be the stopgap if he decides to attempt to bully the city of Philadelphia. Because my leader, Mayor Parker, is not going to be bullied. She's not going to compromise her positions on her core values. But fiscally, are we preparing with a plan B? That's question number one. Number two, I want you to know that during the course of this budget, I will be revisiting the blueprint for a safer Philadelphia. I already talked to our police commissioner to kind of look by department how we're doing. There's a 39% reduction in shootings. I know it's a combination of things, but I'd like to know in a granular detail what things are working, what things we need to double down and do more of. And Vanessa, I know you've been on this for a very long time. Third thing is that something that I've always been concerned about is our capital budget and how long it takes to do any one thing. I'm excited that Aparna, who is my shero, that is taking on that goal, but we've had all these iterations with rebuild and this build and that build, but we haven't built enough. And so how do we get rid of that 10-year backlog of capital projects? And is that, in effect, a way to help stimulate the local economy by putting shovels in the ground? And then Along with Rob DeBoe, I've been here now 17 budget presentations. And I always pick one department, not to pick one, but to hope to do, motivate to do better. And one of them is, and I couldn't do their job, I say it with authority, the Office of Homelessness. We've got a homeless problem in the city of Philadelphia, and it is wedded to the mental health problem that we face in the city of Philadelphia. And if we're going to be a great city for FIFA, if we're going to be a great city for, there you go, see? I got them all in.
Go ahead, Member Jones.
How do we take on that task so that when people visit our city, they're not stepping over the downtrodden? And we have to kind of work with both hemispheres of our brain to solve that. And I'll drop the mic there. Thank you. You can answer that now.
Sure.
You
So
can
I
answer
have-
that during the budget. You can answer both.
So I have four different buckets that we're mapping it out. First, we'll start with housing. The mayor has this process of ensuring that whenever we proffer a plan, we've put it through a rigorous test, a very rigorous test. She calls it a geometric if-then statement.
Say what now?
A geometric if-then statement. So this is the plan, but then if this happens, what do you do then? And then if that happens, then what do you do then? And so whether it's our housing plan, our Kensington Revival Plan, the Wellness Center Plan, the Wellness Ecosystem Plan, even tax reforms, our 5-year plan overall, every plan that we proffer as an administration has gone through a rigorous geometric if-then statement. So to answer your first question, our housing plan, the address that was delivered yesterday, the plan that is being uploaded as we speak, the plan that we will go into greater detail on April 21st, it has gone through that rigorous plan such that it will stand the test of time. Should federal cuts happen at the federal level, should proposals that we're hoping, be put forth and passed, including the governor's budget being adopted at the state level, should those things happen, great. But if they don't, we always have another plan. I don't call it a plan B because the mission is the mission, and we're going to continue on the mission, but we will employ different tactics. We're happy to discuss that in greater detail on April 21st regarding housing. As it pertains to the blueprint, I'd now like to call up our Director of Public Safety, Adam Gear, to talk about how we've actually adopted many of the principles in that plan. And I know that the mayor gave you a wonderful a nod, a shout out, a recognition for the hard work that your team did to bring that plan to bear. So Adam Gear can talk about that, and then we'll go to the third bucket.
Thank you.
Morning, Council President.
Good morning.
Morning, esteemed council members. Absolutely, Council Member Jones, we have been doing a lot in this administration, right? It started with a lot of the work that this body had been doing and leading on, and we built on that. Our anti-violence prevention grants program, that $25 million that you all gave to the city to dispense is making a difference. The leadership of this council is making a difference. The leadership of our mayor making a difference, of our police commissioner, of the folks you see here on the table, right? It is all of these things. It is cleaning, it is greening, it is sanitation. None of them are having an effect in their silos. They're all collectively contributing, along with, yes, our back to work, right? Along with, I would even go so far as to say the Eagles winning, lifting up morale. All of this stuff matters as a city. But leadership matters. We're leaning into your plan. We're really excited to talk about all of the other work the Office of Public Safety has been doing for the past year, built again upon the work that this council and others, community members, have been doing for years.
Okay.
I have a question on that same line of questioning. So I know we start off with, I think it was 23 million last year, and then we advocated for additional 30, and we know in this budget is 25 for the violence prevention grants. How much did we spend on the violence prevention grants for boots on the ground organizations? And then also, and I know we'll have a chance to talk to you about the Office of Public Safety, but also give us an idea about the consultant work regarding evaluating the effectiveness of our investments with organizations from the violence prevention money.
Absolutely. So we're not done spending the money, right? We have already gotten through our CEG, our largest grants, We made those awards, and also our second largest grants, the CCG. So that money is ramping up and getting out the door. We're signing those contracts, and we are finalizing, probably within the next 10 days, the organizations that are going to be receiving the TSIG, those smaller microloans to do their work. We intend to spend all, if not most, of the money. We know that this
How much
works.
have we spent so far?
I'll get you that exact number.
Okay.
For the TSIG and the CEG, I know that we have that available, so I will make that available
Thank
to you. Second part of your question, Councilmember, if you could repeat.
The evaluation
Yes, yeah.
of the organizations. And to be frank, this been being asked since Vanessa was in the position. So I got asked the question, so I want to just put on a record and see where we're at in terms of moving that process forward under this administration.
Most of our major programs have been evaluated or are currently being evaluated. That includes P3, that includes GVI, so that it's either in process or it has been completed. Now, a lot of this is new territory that the city is leading on, right? And so what I mean by that is we have hired a director of performance management. We did a nationwide search. We brought a gentleman back home to Philadelphia who's leading the work in the Seattle DA's office. And we have tasked him, and now our grants team, which we'll talk about it more, but we've pulled together all of our performance management folks from all of the agencies. They used to be in each of the agencies. They now operate together as a group. We pulled them out of their silos so that we could all be speaking the same performance language. And his task is going to be to continue to evaluate and understand how our groups, how our anti-violence program groups work, what effect they have, the lives that they are saving. And so we will talk more about that, but we are engaged in that work and we'll lead on that.
So at some point in time, we expect a report to say, from the investments that we have given, here's our dashboard on how we're being effective in terms of investing and supporting boots on the ground organizations and how that turns into saving lives, correct?
Correct.
Do we have a timeline?
As a first step, we're going to have prepared for April 8th the number of what our city's anti-violence spending is. As a next step, we're going to continue the evaluations of those programs and then be able to report back to council what we think works and what we think does not work and where we're going.
And then also, because I also believe that what gets measured gets done, right? Mm-hmm. But then I'll have another follow-up conversation, which we just to also make sure when we talk about quality and we talk about quantity and numbers and evaluation, right? It can sometimes be a little complicated when you're dealing with also like, mom and pop organizations that are actually doing the work, right? But also need the back office support, right, compared to like a pen that may get millions of dollars from PCCD, but they're not in the neighborhood, right? Where they're partnering with groups in the neighborhood and using their list to say, during our outreach, we touch 300 people, but that's off the partnership of working with an organization like NOMO or Unity in the Community. And so we can be fiscally responsible, we would like to see a thorough evaluation to make sure that our investments are put in good hands. And so look forward to working with you on that. But thank
Absolutely,
you,
Council President.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Councilmember
President,
Jones?
83 million a year from the federal government goes to PCCD, goes to those groups. We have to be cognizant of that kind of impact. And I'm sorry to take.
No, you're absolutely right. And those are those organizations that even the council president referenced, NOMO, that work is really important. We want to make sure that we have all the right levers and supports in place to ensure whatever changes at whatever level, that organizations that are the boots on the ground that have been doing the work and doing a significant amount of work and doing a really good job can continue doing that. So whether that's Unity in the Community under Anton or NOMO under Ricky Duncan, we want to continue, and Emir, Shante Love, and on. We want to continue to support those organizations because it's proof positive that it is working. And Council President, I really like what you said, what gets measured gets done. That's the impetus for Philly Stat 360. And we have our standard 31 stats and measures that we measure on that side, but also we build out storyboards. So I know we were here recently in this room discussing our public safety plan and our commitment to Kensington and even the Kensington caucus. And we have a storyboard up to show how we're measuring our success. And so I can tell you that, it's exactly as Director Gear said, April 8th is D-Day. That's when we'll provide that report to you on those numbers. Accountability is important. What gets measured gets done. That's going to be my new mantra.
Thank you very
Can we,
much.
Third bucket.
Can we defer the third bucket so that my colleagues can get in?
So we will make sure that we submit in writing a response around the efficiency of our new capital programs office
Correct.
under the leadership of Aparna Palantino, and then, of course, all of the amazing work that's happening under Cheryl Hill for our Office of Homeless Services. will
So we can
submit
do that on round 2 if it's okay with you, Mr. President.
Absolutely, Member Jones.
Okay.
The chair recognizes Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. And I wanted to start off with a thank you to the administration and to each of you for the work throughout the year. It's been a wonderful year to work together on a number of constituent issues, so I just wanted to put that on the record. I wanted to go back to the point around the vacancy rate so I could properly put my question on the record. I asked this because of our overall financial picture and outlook over the next several years based on a number of things. And, I heard you talk about the end of the one-time federal funds, the new uncertainty in Washington, the new contracts, our new union contracts, our pension obligation payment in FY29, the service department demands, the weaker tax base, maintaining the positive fund balance, and then also the investments in the BSR and the federal funding reserve. And so just for the record, for the vacancy rate, because this will be important to me, and I know I talked to Rob and Sabrina about this as well, if you could just detail for us the vacancy rate versus actuals for the last 2 years, and then what you have budgeted for this year in addition to the budgeted vacancy allowance for this year. I'll start there. And then I wanted to ensure that I put on the record my concern and consternation regarding the workforce development change. You all know, and this is prior to this administration, that during the COVID years, during our budget process, in the previous administration, that the Workforce Development Department was eliminated and then became a unit under the Commerce Department, much to the push of members of City Council. And now we are just getting back to a space and place where there's real investment in workforce development, both from the commitment of the mayor and of your administration, but also from a financial perspective and how we are working both internally and externally on recruitment. And so I want to put on the record that I do have concern regarding the transition of the Workforce Development Department, in that I thought the thinking was initially for that department to work under Commerce, to talk about all the things that the Commerce Director mentioned earlier today from a business growth perspective from Commerce, but also if in the Commerce Department you're working directly with the businesses that will hire the individuals who will work at those businesses, if that was the reason why workforce development stayed with Commerce. And I guess CCME is sort of the umbrella to do the recruitment work for the city overall, but I'm talking about from an overall financial picture of Commerce is working with the businesses, and the businesses are the ones that will hire the workforce here in the city. So I'll go back to, I just wanted to paint that picture for you. I'll go back to the question regarding the vacancies, and then if we could go to the Commerce Workforce Development question next.
Yeah, so I think we know what you want. Probably, we look at vacancy by division.
Right.
So we can get you something that shows how what we had in the budget compares to actual. And you want that for 24 and 25, and what we're including in 26?
Right.
Okay.
The allowance
We
per
will put
department
that
for
together.
26.
And we're still getting some of that back from the department, so the 26 part may take a little longer, but 24 and 25 we can get you.
Right, that's why I started with 24 and 25,
Yeah.
because I figured 26 wasn't completely finished yet. But I think that'll help us sort of understand what actual wiggle room we may have, per se. And I also wanted to address, go ahead.
Sorry, we'll say part of the trade-off on vacancy allowances, depending on the department, between that and overtime.
Right.
So we probably then need to look at kind of how overtime compared to projection too, just to give that fuller picture.
Right, right. And I think the other reason why I was asking that question is because when you go through the materials and in reading everything, there are a number of new positions slated for a number of departments based on priority. And so for me, I'm seeking to understand how many of those positions are brand new positions to city government versus a position that can address a vacancy that has already been allotted for in the budget process.
Yeah, understood. And that was one of the things that working with OHR we looked at as we looked at each budget request.
Right, right. Okay.
So I was actually working under the previous administration prior to the Office of Workforce Development being established, during the process of the office being established, being the department that stood up a program, the first program under that office, and then seeing it successfully grow. As I was transitioning out of government at that time, that's when COVID hit, and then the decision was made to put it in commerce. Coming back in this role, drawing on my experiences both in government under the previous administration, but then also working with other local governments across the nation in my consultant role, I realized that enterprise-wide roles, enterprise-wide work should rest and reside in enterprise-wide focused departments. And so that was the impetus for the change. So yes, the work that is led under Gianna, who is here today, Gianna Grossman, it was doing really well in the Commerce Department, but it was siloed because it was only focusing on those businesses tied to commerce. That work continues, but it's more enterprise-wide now. So not just focusing on the businesses externally or external to government and looking at job growth, but also internally as well. So we are, and we're doing the same thing as well in our restructuring with our HR practices. We find that when we centralize it, and we can then ensure that there's a common practice, a common North Stars, if you will, common guideposts and guidelines that each department will be held accountable for. And so under the leadership of Carol DeFries in CAO, in partnership, of course, with Gianna Grossman, Grossman, there it is, Grossman, we are ensuring that work is not just siloed to businesses, and so that is really important to us, not just focusing on those businesses, but enterprise-wide across all of our many departments.
And I heard the bill, and I want to be respectful of the clock, and I do have a lot here that I want to try to get through today. But it was my understanding that OHR handled more of the internal coordination of workforce development, that it was not just the business coordination under the Commerce Department, that it was also the nonprofit partner roundtable that collaborated with the Commerce Department. It wasn't just business. I think Commerce was more external, I should say. It included the nonprofit partners. They had a roundtable, a robust roundtable of nonprofits that they met with on a daily basis. We work with even the life sciences and tech industry folks with Commerce as well. So I didn't look at it as Commerce being in a silo. I thought that OHR did the internal portion, which would be more of the CCME work, and that Commerce focused on the external to city government, the nonprofits and the businesses, obviously, that are coming to the city.
Yeah.
So I say that because I also was looking at the additional positions for it as well, along with recognizing the work that Commerce, I think, has done a good job around ensuring that we are properly investing in workforce development, even creating outside opportunities for these organizations with the money that we in council had put into that work under the previous administration because of what happened during COVID.
Yeah,
So,
it wasn't a punitive decision. They were doing a great job under Commerce, and they're doing a great job, but it's expanded. We've expanded our approach, but the focus is both internal and external under CAO. So that hasn't changed. just last week, we met with over 100 nonprofits to circle back to them and remain accountable to the work that we were doing around our contracting and procurement process. There is a workforce development component tied to that as well. So we were able to seamlessly address one issue and then talk about the additional work that we want to expand with our workforce development. So it's a different model, but it certainly doesn't take away from all of the different organizations across a myriad of sectors that we were engaged with under Commerce. We're still actually our engagement has grown in these last few months under our new CCME model. I think that we've been able to attract more external partners with that model as well. And so I just want to just state for the record that I'm really proud of the direction that we're going with workforce development. We're even being more intentional on how we are engaging with our labor union. So we have some exciting work coming ahead that we'll be announcing pretty soon around partnerships with SEIU, Unite Here, CARP, Rosie's Girls, Sam Staton Jr. So we have those investments already in our budget, in our portfolio. We're able to expand it at record clip because of that enterprise-wide focus that the CAO team brings that was a bit more siloed under Commerce. So we just increased our effectiveness, but it didn't take away certainly from all of the work that was happening within the Commerce Department.
Okay, I appreciate the response. I'll come back on the next round, but I'm happy that you stated for the record regarding sort of the thinking around workforce development, which was, I have to be honest, one of my babies since
Yes.
I've been here. This has been the work that I have focused on, legislation that I have passed, and so I just wanted to ensure that you all understood the importance of it by placing it on the record. And in addition to that, I'm happy that you stated that investments are already in this process for the pre-apprenticeship work, because I know that we had to talk about that last budget cycle, particularly
Yes.
for Sam Staton Jr. Apprenticeship Program, for Rosie's Girls, for the CART program, and also for, it's one other program, one other workforce development program that we support is a pre-apprenticeship program. But I'm happy that you put that on the record, that the support is already there for those organizations.
They're there for those organizations. We're really excited about that work. It's tied also to our housing agenda. So we're really thinking about how can we be more comprehensive with our investments, right? Ensuring that our dollars, that we can stretch it as long and wide as we can. So through CCME, we have the same way we have a funnel of showing, starting through partnering with the school district and schools like it, our charter schools, creating that funnel at the early ages through CCME, working from that enterprise-wide approach to putting them in critically needed positions, ensuring that whether it's within government or with our third-party partners, and then making sure that it's tied to our housing agenda and other agendas around clean and green to advance that work. That's what we mean by economic opportunity for all. So I appreciate that your ongoing support and that acknowledgement there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council President. I'll come back on the next round to talk about more of my finance questions, okay? Thanks.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilmember Cindy Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Good to see everyone. I just had one quick question, and I want to just refer back to the mayor's conversation yesterday, or her speech yesterday, regarding housing and the $400 million borrow that was going to be coming up. And she really did emphasize that that money would not sort of sit around, which is kind of something that happens over and over and over again when we have these projects. When we did rebuild, we had this, borrow $100 million, and then we couldn't get it out the door, and then we borrowed another 100, and meanwhile we're paying debt service, and people aren't seeing projects done as promised, and, I'm not blaming you, obviously, that was another administration, but how do we make sure that this money gets out the door, which is critically important to ensuring that the full scope of her plan and project to provide, 30,000 units new and refurbished existing units. How do we make sure that that actually happens and get those dollars out the door? Because we have a problem with spending money. We're the only people who have a problem with spending money. Most of the time, you've got some money is burning a hole in your pocket, and it's not really a problem to spend it down. But the way that we operate, and I think Councilman Jones had done a chart which showed from beginning to end, how many steps was it, Councilman? Too many, okay. It was a lot to be able to proceed with the project. I don't want to, guesstimate, but I want to say 30, 40, somewhere in that range, steps in the city of Philadelphia to be able to get a project up and running. Anytime we can build 95 and, rebuild parts of 95 in a couple of days, and, we see private developers who can get their projects up and running, in a few months, and then our projects take forever. So how are we fixing that to be able to accomplish her goal and vision?
I'm going to call up Jesse Lawrence, our Director of Planning and Development, but I'll take the top line of that. By successfully adopting our home initiative, that's how we do it. So that home initiative, jokes aside, but no, seriously, that the home initiative does that. So the first thing that we did was, over 30 days ago, the mayor executed or delivered an executive order, which called first on us. It called for introspection. For 25 plus departments to look at how we do business, what are the bottlenecks, what are the barriers, what's going to prevent us from having shovels in the ground, how do we learn from Rebuild and initiatives like it, and then what are we doing really well, and then how do we learn from that and adopt that. So on Friday, we received those recommendations from those departments. We're now operationalizing that work through in the mayor's office. We have a new Office of Policy Planning and Delivery. That D stands for delivery. It's the implementation that's really important. So they are working in partnership with the 25 plus departments, in partnership with Philly Stat 360, because as the council president said, what gets measured gets done. So we're holding ourselves accountable with all of those 100 plus recommendations. We're making it public. It is going to be on our Philly Stat 360 website. And by streamlining processes through those recommendations and more, we're going to be able to get shovels in the ground, but also through the successful passage of the recommendations that we put forth. So two $400 million bonds, and then I'll give it over to Jesse to talk in more detail.
Well, before you do that, let me just ask a follow-up. So with the introspection that's been done, will there be, and I know you said you just got sort of like a report or, a plan last week. And so will there be a report to council detailing how we're going to change things, how we're going to take it from, let's say, 40 steps to, a reasonable number? So you will be reporting back to council on that?
And in fact, under Jesse Lawrence's leadership, along with his chief of staff, John Monlack, here recently, they showed me all of those steps, and my mind was blown at the number of steps it takes to bring a project to bear. So we are streamlining that process. We have proffered a recommendation. We're not touching councilmatic prerogative, but we're looking at how we address that through a new recommendation that we're putting forth. That the mayor teased yesterday that we will go into greater detail on April 21st. But I'll kick it over to Jesse to talk in greater detail now.
One last question. When do you think that you'll be able to report back? How long do you think it'll take you?
So we just got the report on Friday. On Friday.
Sure.
So we just need time to upload it in our system.
Couple weeks, couple months?
No, not a couple months. That's not the
Okay.
type of department or that's not the type of city that we're running.
all
That
right
will not
now.
fly under my leadership.
I
I just looked over to my right a few minutes ago and saw our CIO, Melissa Scott. So as quickly as Melissa Scott and Kristen Bray, our chief legal counsel and head of Philly Stat, can get it up, it will be up there. But we really are a government that we want residents that can see, touch, and feel. We're a government of transparency. So as quickly as we can get it up, it will be there, and we'll make sure that you all have that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And just to give the bottom line to the top line you just got, we have done a significant amount of research on the pace in which the program spending associated with many of the programs that we're carrying over, continuing, investing, and expanding. We have a great sense of how money and funds have been spent over. A good amount of that's being carried over from MPI, so we have a sense of the spending, whether it's on a weekly basis, quarterly basis. And then also with the new programs, we've quantified how we need to staff up to respond to that as well. My particular unit will give it 30 some odd positions to be able to support what we're doing there. And we will be, we're looking at it in terms of the executive order report that Chief of Staff just described, understanding where the different departments are already aligned to carry out a lot of that work when it comes to the programs. We were tasked with providing the finance and budget department a specific spend down schedule. So we've looked at that, understanding where we're going to be able to bridge the gap with whatever's left over in the existing MPI drawdown, but also understanding on a quarterly basis and fiscal year basis when we'll be hitting certain marks, because it's going to take some time to stand up some new programs, but we also have the capacity to maintain the existing programs as well. So with the existing programs, we're expanding them, understanding what monetarily and staff-wise it's going to take to move all of that out. The key here is to minimize our finance department holding on to funds way longer than they should be, because they're the ones paying out the debt services. So we need to make sure that that timeline aligns. So we're closely monitoring that as we finalize our budget, make sure that we're on the same page about what programs are being rolled out. We are looking at every single one of those programs to be sure about when they'll actually start, when they need to be funded, and how soon we can fund them.
Well, excellent. Well, I just want to thank you for your work. I'm really excited. I'm very excited because it's been a minute. Rebuild had great promise, potential, and expectations. And so it's been way too quiet for the liking of most. It's been quiet like a cemetery. It's been way too quiet to move these projects along to get them where we had thought we would be by now. Rebuild was debuted, I think, in 2016. And it's just not where we had hoped it would be. So I'm excited about the possibilities that you're presenting here today. So this is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bass. The chair recognizes Councilman Jamie Gaultier.
Thank you, Council President. And good morning to you all. Thank you for being here. I wanted to talk about homelessness in our city. Despite past stumbles, we cannot deny how crucial the Office of Homeless Services is. As homelessness becomes a more urgent and widespread issue, we need to ensure that the department has the tools it needs to serve our neighbors who don't have a place to call home. It was heartening to hear the mayor speak about the unprecedented amount of investment in housing in our city that will come through the Home Initiative, especially in light of early impressions from the recent point-in-time count that homelessness in our city is rising. So I wanted to ask, as it relates to the Home Initiative, will eradicating homelessness be a part of this huge undertaking? What additional resources and tools, if any, are being deployed in this effort? And can you explain the proposed $5 million decrease in OHS funding over the next 5 years?
So I'll take there's a two-pronged question. First, I want to, thank you, Cheryl Hill, who is seated at this table, who was not here last year. When we started in this administration, of all of the departments that we wanted to see a quick and fast turnaround, it was OHS. And we are really grateful for Cheryl Hill and her leadership and all of the dynamic work that's happened since she's arrived here in this role. So Cheryl will take the first question, and then the second question around eradicating homelessness as a part of our Home Initiative. I'll call on first Crystal Yates-Gale to talk about this proof of concept that we're socializing, and then Jesse Lawrence and our new Chief Housing and Urban Development Officer, Angela Brooks, will talk about the supportive housing component of the Home Initiative. So Cheryl first, then Crystal, and Jesse and Angela.
Thank you. So first I want to say we can end homelessness in Philadelphia, and that is our intent. And so one of the things that we are currently doing is we're looking at our processes, we're looking at the services that we provide and make sure they're the right ones for the people who are unhoused in Philadelphia. So we take what you say seriously, and we definitely appreciate your efforts that you have also had in trying to end homelessness. But one of the things that we are looking at is how we spend the money and making sure that it goes to the right places, to make sure that it's serving the right people. And so we are looking at how much shelter that we provide, how we can target permanent housing. And as the Chief of Staff said, we will be working closely with Jesse's team in order to do that. But also we have been engaging PHA. We've been engaging other providers to really talk about it. And on Thursday, we're actually having a community meeting to engage the service provider community as well, to be able to talk about how we can do things different in order to end homelessness in Philadelphia. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Good morning, council member. Thank you for always caring about the unhoused in Philadelphia. When I first heard about the proof of concept, I'm like, let's call it a proof of concept to end street homelessness in Philadelphia. And that is our plan. So as part of Mr. Lawrence's department plan to add 30,000 units to the system, OHS is working very collaboratively with them to make 3,000 of them, at least 3,000 of them, part of OHS's supply of housing for people. The other thing is related to what Councilmember Bass has said, is that part of our proof of concept is to provide these things at what the mayor says is I-95 speed. So that's the answer to what we're trying to do to eradicate homelessness in Philadelphia.
I will also note for the record that the budget was not cut. We can talk more about that, but before we get there, we'll talk about supportive housing as it's part of this initiative, and I'll call on now Angela Brooks, our Chief Housing and Urban Development Officer.
Good morning and thank you. So I would just like to refer to the section of the plan. So first, prevent housing instability and homelessness is one of the North Stars of the Home Initiative, and we have quite a bit of focus that's on that, but we have specific recommendations in the plan that are a part of that. So it would be the existing programs that we have, eviction diversion, homeless prevention. We want to invest and expand in EDP targeted financial assistance. We've got the Philadelphia eviction prevention programs and right to counsel that will be continuing, transitional housing and homelessness prevention, permanent housing and supportive housing services, tenant-based rental assistance and rapid rehousing, and foreclosure prevention. And just to kind of note for me, prior to coming here, I worked for the Corporation for Supportive Housing. So for the last 4 years, I've been working on preventing and ending homelessness on a national level. So this is something that's very personal to me, but something I have a lot of experience in, so it will be a hyper-focus of some of the work that we're doing. But we're also looking forward to working with you and some of the things that you've been doing as well, Councilmember Gauthier. So certainly look forward to having conversations with you around that. But it is a huge North Star of this plan. It's a hyper-focus, and it's one of the biggest things that the mayor has talked about since I've started in some of her key focus areas. So I look forward to thinking about how we end homelessness in Philadelphia. It is an achievable goal. I think a lot of the funding, increasing units, and some of the plans that we have outside of that that aren't explicitly tied to ending homelessness will be very applicable as well and really help to eradicate homelessness.
Thank you.
And then finally, which is part of your question, but also I certainly want to also shout out Council Member Lozada. We are investing additional dollars into Code Blue. And I know that that is something that is really important to all members of council, especially in Kensington and the work that you are doing under your leadership there, Councilmember Lozada. We also learned through statistics that were provided under Cheryl Hill's leadership that 2/3 of the people that actually come into our homeless shelters are first-timers. And so through our home initiative, we are looking at ways to do that eradication by ensuring that we have pathways that prevent them from going into our homeless shelters, but that can provide supportive housing as a solution. So we're working on that initiative in coordination with OHS, other departments, including under Angela's leadership and Jesse Lawrence's.
Good. And I established a working group around this particular issue that I want to work in partnership with the administration on. One about the point in time count,
Yes.
who gets count, who doesn't get count. Two, the quality of our shelters, because when I was out on the street doing Code Blue, talking to individuals, some, to be quite frank with you, said, I prefer to be here than to go and deal with what's going on in some of the shelters. And so, from an evaluation standpoint, taking a look at that. And then also, our system, making sure everybody has an opportunity to talk with one another and share information. I know some people say it may impact the HIPAA law. I see Renee Garcia over there, but other cities have a system where service providers are able to talk to one another through a particular portal while you have individuals going from one service or one shelter to another. So want to be a partner in that. And not so much because we're about to celebrate on the birthplace of America, but because it's the morally thing that we should be doing and also not looking at homelessness as just a quality of life issue, but also from a moral standpoint, you have children, young people sleeping from house to house, couch to couch, families, particularly young ladies with children, not on the street, but staying from house to house on people's couches because they don't have a home. And so I want to be a partner in that with my colleagues in the administration.
Absolutely, Council President.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilmember Jones, and then I'll go back and relinquish her time to Councilmember Jamie Gautier.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you, Jamie, for reinforcing this issue. When you went out on Code Blue, 30-plus people contacted. Only one went in and said he felt safer in prison than he did in the shelters because of assaults and robberies. I told you there would be one department that I kind of got to drill down on, and that is it. I could not do that job. You find people at their most vulnerable, but we have to do a better job of making them feel safer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Jamie Gautier.
I'm hoping that, I'm trying to understand the FY26 proposed budget as related to the FY25 budget. It's showing a $5 million decrease in Class 200, which is contracts and leases.
Yes.
Can you explain the $5 million decrease?
Absolutely. I'll call on Rob. I'm sorry, our Budget Director, Sabrina Maynard. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So we are working with OHS on their budget, as you can imagine. We meet with them weekly. There was some funding they did not need that was recurring. We can follow up with some of the detail.
Okay, I'm challenged to understand how we would be dealing with increases in homelessness by chopping the OHS budget by $5 million, or that OHS doesn't need the money that they've had even in past budget years. I think it's very important to have that detail and to look at it critically given the state of homelessness in our city.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Understood. We'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes the gentleman from the Northwest, Dr. Anthony Phillips, council member. Y'all can clap for that.
Y'all don't know already. Y'all don't know already. I love this man. Thank you all so much. Council President, thank you. I want to thank the administration for honing in on important things to our communities. The housing plan is incredible. The wellness plan is credible. We also have done some significant work in public safety. When you put a lot of sense of time into something, things start to move. So I want to applaud you on that. I want to bring forth attention to something that has been very important to me since I was 16 years old, and that is civic engagement. There's an office that I've been, ever since I was a young person in civic engagement, that I've been looking at for so many years. And I always questioned, how are they moving the needle in civic engagement in the city? And that is the Office of Public Engagement, Civic Engagement, which is now known as the Neighborhood and Community Engagement Office. I am proud of the leadership that's been taken to put together the town halls that we do in the community. I'm also proud of the fact that we have these neighborhood action centers, which are doing quite well. But the one part of I want to take this as put this on record for incredible feedback and how we could work together to make this happen. The one part of that office that has still yet not moved the needle is the commissions. In terms of the commissions over the years, even though as I've seen since a teenager, people have showed up to events, they've hosted discussions, and they've also just done, publicity things, right? But actual having significant programs that can change lives and have impact and move some of the mayor's initiatives, across the table, we haven't really seen that. So, Mike, it's the only two commissions that have really been impactful this year with programs is Abu Edwards, the Director of Black Male Engagement, where he's literally organized a program that you can see impact. The Office of Women Engagement has programs and so forth. Thus far, when we talk about, I want the public to hear this, in the highlights of what these commissions have done, the Office of Black Male Engagement created a program for middle school students to help them become leaders in their schools and communities. Abu Edwards is doing an amazing job. Office of Women Engagement, they're launching an app that will help women get real-time support and so forth around crises. The Youth Engagement, they're working on something around safe corridors, with discussions with the school district. Latino Engagement, Muslim Affairs, discussions and round tables. Yet again, it's always discussions and round tables with no particular impactful programs. However, what bothers me about this budget is that we're asking for about close to $1 million increase in their budget, while an impactful program such as the Mural Arts Program, which has been around for 40 years, colleagues, 40 or so plus years, decades, they're being slashed significantly, close to $1 million or so. And then in the next couple of years, it's going to be slashed $2 million or so. So, and coming from the nonprofit world, you don't reward people who have not shown impact. You reward people who have been impactful. So I'm going to give my questions really quickly, and I'm hoping that the commissions this year actually do a better job. So the question I have is, the budget outlines a plan for 300 community meetings and events to be hosted. I know personally that 120 of those meetings are going to be local meetings in the town halls, the community action centers. What are the other meetings going to be about? And how do you plan to work with council members to engage in that space? Also, I'm also concerned about the next question is, what data or key performance indicators are being used to evaluate whether or not the neighborhood and community engagement office strategies are making tangible difference in residents' lives beyond the towns, beyond the centers? I want to learn more about the commissions. And then also, what are the commissions specifically going to be doing to make sure that they're engaging the diverse populations around the city to actually have impactful and thoughtful things? Because, you know, I love the geographic if and then, and also the rigorous plan, but I just have not seen, even from this report, a rigorous plan for what the commissions are going to look like, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you all about that. Thank you.
So my colleague, Chief Deputy Mayor Sinceri Harris, will answer that question in full. But let me just start by saying we don't see funding our budget as a reward. So last year, each of those commissions, many of them are new, received Class 100 funding. But they did not have Class 200, 300, and 400 funding to actually do their jobs. So on one hand, you're saying there's no impact, but on the other hand, you're saying, why are we rewarding them? They need money in order to operate, in order to deliver those services. But we by no means see Class 200, 300, and 400 as rewards to our leaders. Secondly, in our 5-year plan, we have constraints. We are constrained to word counts, and our budget director, Sabrina Maynard, and her team under Ami Patel, they make sure that we adhere to those word counts. What that means is oftentimes we can't, in its totality, talk about all of the great work that's happening detail by detail. Each of those commissions and neighborhood engagement teams that you mentioned, they have reports on our website showing the impact that they made with only enough money in their budget just to cover their salaries and benefits. And so my colleague, Chief Deputy Mayor, will go over those statistics because, as you all know, we do measure our impact, so she will share that. But I just wanted to clarify for the record, the Parker administration, we don't see the budget as a reward. It's how we deliver services.
Thank you. Tiffany took the first point, and we never want to pit any of our offices against each other. They all do very valuable work. I'm going to call up the engagement director, Hassan Freeman, and while he's making his way to this to the stage, I just want to correct the record on some things and give an overview and some clarifying. So to your point about the budget addition, for the portion that is considered constituency engagement, that's your black male engagement, that's your youth engagement, the women's engagement, who handle many of the commission work that you're referring to, the increase is not $1 million. It's about 200 and some $1,000. If you see last year's budget, they were working off a shoestring budget. And we pretty much held them flat from FY24 to FY25. And that's why we needed, to your point, to kick these programs into high gear to invest in all of those programs. What does that investment look like? You talked about black male engagement, Abu launching the Ben series. What we didn't talk about is Latino engagements, pushing through PHLTCB and providing economic opportunities for folks in that community who otherwise don't have the resources and the opportunities to enter the workforce. The Muslim engagement has done a number of things, and Hassan, you should join me, including launching the 3-day Muslim Business Expo in partnership with the Commerce Department. Again, focusing on economic opportunity that is deliverable and ways that we can impact the community outside of roundtables and advisory councils and those important public meetings, because yes, those are important. In addition to, you mentioned the women's engagement team launching the app, how we can deliver on safer, cleaner, greener, all of them, including our interfaith roundtable, who launched for the first time ever a series of community kitchens over the holiday, partnering with religious institutions, synagogues, churches, and masjids to provide food and resources to local communities. So these are tangible results that these commissions were doing, these commissions and these engagement offices were doing with minimal resources, which is why in FY26 we are proposing that their budget increase. Now that is separate from the initiative of the Neighborhood and Community Action Team, or NCACs, as we kind of commonly started to call them. And those are the 10 district-focused community teams where we were very responsible in making sure we conserved as many resources as possible, maximizing our use of parks and recs and libraries, and one school and one outside partnership with a faith-based institution. And we've set up an organizing team so that we can actually deliver on Mayor Parker's commitment to a government that Philadelphians can see, touch, and feel. They address community issues right there on the spot. Potholes. We had a tenant a resident who was overrun, Council Member Gaultier, in your district, with raccoons. So much to the point where they had to board up the whole house. And those are valuable problem-solving engagements that residents are getting their issues handled. We don't wait for them to come to us. We canvass the neighborhood. We engage local businesses. These teams get out and get to know their local police captain, their local fire chief, all of the parks and recs in their district. They are responsible for being sort of the mini city hall and working with our local and state and federal partners to make sure that Philadelphians know we're all in this together when we talk about a government you can see, touch, and feel. So I don't know if I did you justice, Hassan, if you want to add any additional detail, or council member, if you have any clarifying questions.
Yeah, just one part. I do think the head of Office of Community and Neighborhood Engagement, he hails from South Philadelphia, and
we try not to hold that against him.
When our current commissioner and I and Mr. Freeman, we were in the trenches in early 2000s when the homicide rate was skyrocketing in South Philadelphia, and you had gangs from Tasker and gangs from 27th Street and Wilson Park killing each other day in and day out. And we spent like many evenings trying to stop them gun wars in South Philadelphia. And so to Mr. Freeman for your hard work and your dedication, and most importantly, with the neighborhood, many city halls working in partnership with district council members to make sure we're working collaboratively around community engagement and addressing the issues and concerns of the people in our own individual districts. So the floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate that, Councilman. My name is Hassan Freeman, the Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood and Community Engagement. As you can see, I'm not used to this. But I'd like to answer your question. Chief Deputy Mayor Harris actually talked about some of the work that we do, but we go even further. We actually just partnered with your office in addressing the sinking homes up on Johnson and Mansfield, if I believe it. So we are out there doing the work. In addition to the great work that our women's engagement are doing and our black male engagement, our Latino engagement is actually having those roundtables that discuss empowering a community that's been historically marginalized and underserved. So it takes time to put them back in their place. In addition to that, our faith-based and interfaith affairs community just had approximately 200 faith-based people from all walks of life come together and collaborate on doing things like feeding the homeless, like reducing gun violence, like counseling. So they are actually doing the work as well. In addition to that, our Muslim engagement goes beyond, and I think our Chief Deputy Mayor talked about it. He's also, not only was he feeding the homeless, he also made it recognized in schools to recognize Ramadan. He's working to do things to empower people, again, that have been historically marginalized and underserved in our community. So the work is getting done. Sometimes when you deal with relational organizing, it's just that, relationships. You gotta build them, you gotta rebuild the trust. So it takes time for us to always make it manifest. It can't happen as quickly as we really want it. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to quickly just say, thanks for the clarification. I do want to add, again, just for the record, again, I am congratulating you all for the neighborhood towns. Oh gosh, I want to say town centers, but it's community action centers. But I just think of someone like Abu. I mean, he didn't have much money and found a way to create a program. You know, I'm assuming that things are going to be on the upper end this year, especially with more funding. But I still didn't get the answer to. Well, we'll talk about when Mirror Arts comes up. But I am curious to why such a significant program with an annual report as a success is getting completely, you know, I mean, like, they're losing $1 million, I think closer to that. Yes, it's a significant amount of money. A significant amount of money. And I'm actually looking to see how we can expand that, because it's really important to the see, touch, and feel that we talk about. So.
And thank you, and that's why we are calling for the increased budget to help the tutoring program, the mentoring program that Ben is doing to increase that Ramadan, Ready for Ramadan toolkit that we provided with the school district, in partnership with the school district, and to do some of the other work in terms of faith-based outreach with our prisons in partnership with the clergy program.
Good afternoon. Vanessa Garrett Harley, Chief Deputy Mayor for City of Philadelphia. Just want to address your question, Councilman Phillips, around mural arts and why it appears that there is a cut in the funding in mural arts is receiving this year. Essentially, there is no real cut to the funding that they were receiving. The proposed budget for mural arts for this year is approximately $3.8 million. And what you're looking at is that last year, it looked as if it was $4.2 million in FY25, but that was because of a one-time fund infusion. That is the difference of approximately $500,000 or so, but the difference in those numbers, and that was one-time funds that they received for 2026 beautification of the gateways into FY25. So essentially, they're remaining flat funded, other than that pop that was given in FY25 so that they could begin the work for the FY26.
And I'm sorry, I would be remiss if not putting on the record, in addition to all of the programs that we outlined previously, the Interfaith and Muslim Affairs offices both do respond a lot of times every hour of the day whenever there is they're part of our rapid action team. So any event of gun violence, whether a police officer is shot or whether someone in the community is shot, they stop what they're doing and show up to help that community and that family as much as possible through their grieving time as well. So they're out in the community, they're doing things, and we look forward to approving the budget where we can add to the resources that they bring to the table.
All right, let's hopefully get some of that more work publicized in a, I don't know, decent way. We'll figure it out. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Councilmember Jim Harry.
Sorry.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My man Hassan, what's happening? And I have to say, actually, I've been having dealings with the Office of Muslim Engagement, Iman is everywhere. I mean, me and Sharif have been giving out 300 meals a day since Ramadan started, and he's been at almost every event, especially on Saturdays and Sundays when we're doing it. So I just want to give them a shout out, and Hassan, of course, is doing good work. I'm going to ask my questions. They're kind of technical, and I will let you get back to me on those, but I just want to ask them to get them on the records, okay? And so you'll know where I'm going. First is, we're short 5,700, which is down to 17% in the jobs, employment or hiring. Was your number down to 17%, 2% down? But what confuses me is we have 60,000 applicants, it was said, in 2024. That's 12 times the amount of vacancies we have. Why aren't we hiring? Which brings me to my next question, and again, you can give me this later if you want to answer. What is the time between application to interview to hire? I've asked for this before in the last budget issue. I just want to see if it's changed any. All right, and then that's my questions for that. And now my other question is, what is currently the total debt that we are carrying for rebuild? And also, I would like to see the numbers for the initial bid and the overruns. So I want to see what the bid was initially to complete the project and what the actual final cost of the project was. Okay?
So for your last question around the initial bid to final cost, that's for all rebuild projects? You'd like to see that?
Well, how about all that we've done in 2023 and that we plan on doing in 2000? Well, let's say 2000, when did rebuild start?
Rebuild started in 2016, so.
2016.
Yes.
How about we go from 20, I'll throw a number, 2022.
Okay. So
Till
fiscal
now.
year 22 or calendar year?
Fiscal year,
Okay.
calendar year, whatever you want to tell me. All I'm looking for is the number of what the initial bid was and what we ended up paying at the end of that initial. I'm in construction, so I know about overruns
Absolutely.
and stuff like that. That's all I'm trying to get is actual numbers.
Yes, we can submit that to you. So for each year, each fiscal year starting in FY22, what the initial bid was and final bid, we can
Right.
definitely submit that to you in writing through the council president's
And then
office.
the total cost that we're carrying now from inception of rebuild.
Yes.
What is our total debt that we are carrying right now from inception of rebuild? All right, and then you got the ones about the employment stuff. I just need to know, I want to feel of how long it takes. I've sent a lot of people, is what I'm saying. I get a lot of people and I give them the website and I'm getting texts every day. Oh, dude, I'm 500 and something on the list. As of January, can you find, and I don't even know how to actually find out for them where they're at on their list. So just trying to get a hold of that because, you know, with 60,000 applicants, I think we should be able to find 5,700 employees. So that's it. And you can get back to me with that. I don't want to waste time on numbers.
Well, Councilmember, I certainly don't see it as a waste of time, and if you'd like, I can call up Candy Jones now
Yeah,
to answer
whatever
the
you guys
question
feel
around time for
comfortable with.
application and hiring.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you, Member Harry. Okay, sorry. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Candy Jones, Chief Human Resources Officer. So there's a lot to unpack there, so I'm going to start with just new hires in general. So we are hiring. The 60,000 in applications really speaks to our level of engagement, which we've significantly increased.
Yeah, I love that.
So we're thank you. So we are so our new hires have gone from about 2,400 to about 3,300. So I will provide. Thank you. So we'll provide our new hire information year over year so you can see visually kind of our trajectory upward. What's going to be really important and what I would also like to provide is our separations information. So as we're seeing that we're hiring new candidates, we're hiring over 3,000 people, we're losing 3,000 a year as well.
Okay,
and
you just
so
answered my next question.
Right, so it's important. So we're looking at our tremendous recruitment efforts, we're looking at new hires, but we are bleeding out, right? And so we're losing people to voluntary resignation, drop retirements.
So we're trying to compete with the number
We're
of
competing with
people that-
ourselves.
All right.
Exactly.
all right,
And
all
so
right.
we have some really, I think, helpful visuals of that, just seeing that our
That would be
recruitment
nice.
efforts are not for naught. We are getting there, but we also have to kind of, where we can, kind of address our separations.
Yeah, because, I mean, 3,000 hires, that's great stuff.
Right.
I mean, especially since you guys are really a new administration.
Right, exactly.
So I'm happy about that.
And then, oh.
I just I want the timeframes between apps. And I know some of it's civil service, so that's a little different too, right? That takes a little longer?
Correct. So it's, and I have a great visual I can share with you after
Oh,
this.
that'd be great.
And so for our visual, what we look at, there's 4 pieces in the process.
Okay.
There is the part that OHR owns, which is the initial part where we're putting up our applications to when we're developing that eligible list. There's a part after that where once that eligible list is established, the departments are reaching out to us to request a certification. There's a very small period of time where we're providing those names from the eligible list, and then from that interview to first hire. So we break down the process into 4 parts, and we have some really lovely visuals that I can
Thank you,
share
that would help,
that shows the full comprehensive time to hire, and then it really gives you an opportunity to see who owns the process at which time and the time that that owner is taking for the process. And we have that also broken down by
So
department.
it'll tell us where the hangup is.
Exactly, and so we're looking at those hangups to be very specific and intentional on how we're going to address those hangups. I'll also provide it by department, because I think it's important to also recognize that for some positions, some roles, we have the application period is significantly longer to align with
Absolutely, for
recruitment.
people, advanced degrees. stuff like
Exactly,
that.
and
I get
others
it,
are
yep.
shorter, so we can provide all of that information.
Yeah, just trying to find a disconnect, so that would be great.
Understood.
I did have another one, but it kind of went from my mind. So if I could just get the numbers for the rebuild when you come back, that would be great. And if I think of my senior moment I just had and the other question I had, I'll get back. Thank you, Council President.
And
Thank you.
Council President, we'll make sure that the visual aid that Candy referenced will be submitted to your office, so all members of council will have access to that. And I would like to call up Rob, if that's okay now, our Director of Finance, to answer the rebuild question around our rebuild debt that we're carrying.
Yeah, briefly, please.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to double back on this question as well in the second round. And then also, Member Harity, you'll have the opportunity to address this because on Parks and Rec, they have their own time to also address it as well. Go ahead.
There's $155 million of outstanding rebuild bonds. We actually are probably planning to do one this summer
What
because...
was that number, 150?
155.
55 total
Since inception. We're probably doing another borrowing this summer because rebuild has run through its funds.
What are we looking to borrow this summer?
About 130 million.
Okay. All right. And then you'll get back to me with the bids and things.
Yes.
I know that's technical, it may take a minute. So appreciate that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Member Brooks, then Member Overart.
Good morning, colleagues, and thank you everyone from the administration for testifying today. My office appreciates all the work you've done to prepare this year's proposed budget. I look forward to hearing more about the administration's priorities and being in conversation with my colleagues to ensure that we put forth the best possible budget for Philadelphia. Before I move into the questions I have regarding the 5-year plan, I want to start by stating some of the things I'm thinking about as we enter the budget season this year. We are starting this budget process with every finance expert saying or citing uncertainty regarding the federal budget. And we have seen the Trump presidency emboldened by the work of the billionaire Elon Musk to quickly target and dismantle federal agencies, federal jobs, and in certain cases, individuals who disagree with him. Therefore, my North Star in this budget cycle is to protect Philadelphians, their rights, their finances, and their livelihood. That means to make sure that city agencies like the Department of Labor and the Office of Immigrant Affairs are fully funded and preparing for any challenges that we might have to fight right here in Philadelphia. That means prioritizing city services and investments that would put cash directly into the pockets of our city's poorest and ensuring we remain fiscally sound footing, up to $2.8 billion in federal grants could be at risk this year. That means making sure the investments we are making prioritize our small businesses, working class families, and ensuring corporations and the wealthy are paying their fair share in the face of this growing oligarchy. With that being said, I want to start with my question, which focuses on why the administration is asking council to codify 17 years of tax cuts into law. When I think back to the last 17 years, we saw a Great Recession, a COVID pandemic, supply chain issues that led to historic inflation, and now a federal headwind and another possible recession caused by this Trump administration. Is this the fiscally responsible thing to do now?
So the reason that we're proposing the tax investments and proposing to put them in legislation is because we need jobs. And as the Commerce Director said when she came up here, that is a really positive sign to our businesses to hire people. And putting the legislation in until we get to the point where the gross receipts tax is gone and the net income cap is cut in half shows businesses that we're committed to them and should help us draw businesses and draw jobs. So it's really about job creation.
So by speeding up the tax cuts after the pension funds is made whole, the administration is also effectively trying to, or tying the hands of future mayors and city council. Why should the city prioritize BERT cuts over a historic opportunity to invest in city services and programs?
Yep, and I mean, if you look at the budget and plan we're proposing, there are significant investments in a number of areas, right? So the biggest investment that we're making is the $800 million commitment to housing. But we're also committing to our workforce with $500 million in a labor reserve. We're committing to wellness with the hundreds of millions of dollars of funding there. So it's not a budget and plan that is really just about tax cut investments. It's about a whole range of investments.
So why should this council be tying the hands of future administrations and other city council members moving forward?
So what we want to do is, and one of the things we've heard consistently from businesses, they want predictability. And so the idea of showing those cuts through 2039 is to give that predictability to businesses. That's the rationale.
So businesses dictating that council should be tied up for 17 years?
Businesses aren't dictating anything. It's our attempt to show them a commitment and our attempt to make them feel confident about doing business here and adding new jobs.
Okay. The administration proposed setting aside $95 million in emergency reserves, which is less than 1 week of the total operating costs of the city. Can someone from the administration detail on how they settled on $95 million and what calculations went into it?
Yeah, and I'll acknowledge there wasn't a lot of science. We wanted to put a number to give us a little bit of runway for if things started to go bad. We're not going to be able to put in a number that makes up for all of the federal money we get, but we wanted to give ourselves a little room for if things were started to get really bad.
So what examples do you have on how the city could use this $95 million?
Well, for example, if a grant were canceled and we thought that it was a service that we really needed to provide, some of that funding could go to make up for the loss of that grant.
So has the city run projections on revenue loss from unemployment impacting the federal workers and the eds and med sectors in our economy?
Yeah, so our econometric firm that gives us our projections, one of the things they look at is what's happening with employment. And so they have built some projections around that into the numbers they gave us, which is why we're looking at really flat, one of the reasons we're looking at relatively flat growth over the next 5 years.
And my last question is, has the administration asked departments to prepare for cuts either due to federal funding or due to a recession?
We went through a process earlier last year where we asked departments to give us cut scenarios so that we could be prepared for, if things went wrong. And that's a process that we typically go through every year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Rourke, then Councilmember Dr. Nina Ahmad, then Councilman Rulandow, and then we will take a break. But just for the record, I want to be clear on your statement. Prior to the administration, and put a pause in BERT and wage tax investments, right? Prior to this, but previous years, rather, the last administration before that, every year there was a wage reduction investment as well as a BERT reduction and investment. Has services and spending increased or decreased?
Yeah, so to your point, really since the mid-90s, there have been reductions in the wage tax and or the BERT in almost every year, and we have seen consistent increases in our revenues.
So spending has continued to grow?
Correct.
As relates to services, not decrease, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to kind of frame that just for the record. Councilmember Nick O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's an interesting point. Some might find it tacky or taboo to say, but I have to say how much I appreciate and find springtime refreshing in these times the fact that the lion's share of this leadership team are powerful black women. Want to hat tip y'all. I take great pride in seeing you up here. Also in our council as well, our majority leader, our minority leader. Your leadership is glowing, and I appreciate just seeing it. Just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you to Mayor Parker for her leadership, as well as your team for being here today, and I especially want to acknowledge the team for taking the time to meet with me and understand our office's priorities. These budget decisions carry real weight. As we say all the time, budgets are moral documents. Where your treasure is, your heart will be also. They reflect our values and determine who we choose to protect and uplift in this moment of uncertainty that we have spoken at length about today. And with that, I want to dive into questions about the uncertainty and, frankly, the fear that many Philadelphians feel right now. And they say as much nearly every day. I hear the same concern, some variation of this question. With everything happening at the federal level, what is the city doing to protect us? Something like that. We know that Philadelphia relies heavily on federal funding, yet major cuts are looming. So I do have questions about what's at stake. In 2024, the city received $2.8 billion in federal grants. For the record, Chief Thurman, what percentage of our annual budget does that represent?
I'm going to kick that over to our finance director.
So it's a slightly complicated question because not all of that is in our general fund. A lot of it's in grants fund.
You said it's slightly not a good question?
No, it's a great question.
Okay.
It's a complicated question.
Okay.
Never say it's not a good question. So we went to look at kind of our all funds budget, which I believe is about 11 billion.
Percentage-wise, that's about 40%?
That would be about 20% of the 11 billion.
I still find that to be quite a huge proportion.
It is, yes.
And that should be a major alarm bells for all of us, and I hope the viewing public that actually watches these things recognizes that. The city also collected $1 billion in wage taxes from federal workers and employees in the meds and ed sectors, many of whom have already faced layoffs or financial strain. I think I saw an article in the Inky or somewhere talking about, Philly basing its fiscal future on eds and meds and that being in question. Does the administration have data on how many jobs have already been lost due to federal layoffs? And how many more are currently at risk, including jobs in our eds and meds sector that are heavily reliant on federal dollars?
We don't. I mean, we have it, and you cited the stats. We have it by dollars collected.
Could you submit it in writing for the record?
Let me talk to the folks in revenue because we receive our revenue from employers in a group. So let me just see what we can get you on.
I understand. If we don't know how many jobs are already gone or at risk or aren't really clear about that, how are we supposed to plan for what's coming? in a row, since I know that you said there, you run things, I guess, year after year to kind of think about a plan B or not a plan B. The mission is the mission, Chief Thurman said, but what other tactics you may take. But it really does raise a question about how we should plan thoroughly across the council. We can't afford to be caught flat-footed with federal dollars disappearing and layoffs continuing. And we're 3 months into this administration. I guess that's about 3% into the 4-year term. That's rough. Can you tell us how many federal grants have already been terminated?
I'm going to actually, just want to say one thing about, we're not being caught flat-footed. We know that there are risks, and you kind of cited some of the numbers that we've talked about that are at risk, and we have done things to prepare, but I'll turn it over to the city solicitor to talk you through what we can do.
Thank you, Renee Garcia, City Solicitor. So far, one grant has been officially terminated. I will say that grant is the subject of national litigation, and like most of the lawsuits that we have seen nationally, it has resulted pretty quickly in an injunction.
What was that one grant funding?
It's a government-to-government grant through the EPA. There have been many other grants that are off and on. Sometimes at 8 a.m. we can't draw down funds, but at 8 p.m. we can. So it is something that we are working on every single day. And this administration is teaching me patience. Because truly it is a cycle of they do something, there's a lawsuit, there's an injunction, the money starts flowing. So it is something that we are monitoring truly by the hour.
Okay. Council President, I did hear the bill, and I want to be mindful. We do get a round two, perhaps. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for understanding as well. Dr. Nina Mind, and then we're going to break at 12:30, and we'll be back after break.
All right. Thank you, Council President. I just want to commend the mayor and her team for being so bold in their vision. I know times are tough, but we have to be growth-oriented and we have to look to the future. So I'm really happy to see many of these initiatives that have been rolled out in this budget. Of course, the devil is in the details, and I have a question about the home initiative that is going to be issuing the $800 million bond. The question was, is this, are these going to be general obligation bonds or revenue bonds? Because that will determine also, the interest rates associated in our debt. So I just wanted to get clarification on that.
They will be revenue bonds, but they're supported by all of the city's revenues. So they generally carry the same rating and trade the same as our GO bonds.
The second question is, based on that, from what I can tell, that 33 million of the 400 million approximately for the debt service is about 8.25%. I don't know if that's correct. If you can tell me what that debt service rate is. And then also, is it prudent to, because rates are going to fluctuate and hopefully come down, is it prudent to do two large bunches like this instead of doing maybe different, if we can, I don't know the issues around floating these bonds, but can we do it in smaller tranches so we can get the benefit of lower rates?
Yep, so two things. We are assuming for the first borrowing, the rate is about 5.75%, slightly higher for the second borrowing. The reason that we're showing two borrowings of that size so quickly is that we anticipate to be spending this money really quickly and to get it out the door. So I would agree with you if the spending was going in such a pattern that we should spread out the borrowings, that would make sense. But we anticipate for this program spending will be fast.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. Sure. Now I'm switching to, I know I don't have much time, switching to the 2026 preparations. And I see that the city has committed $60 million and of that 28 million to public safety. I have a particular interest in understanding if we are paying attention to human trafficking, particularly sex trafficking, that goes up during times when we have a lot of sporting events. And I am looking to see if we can carve out some resources to do prevention awareness and potential training. We're putting together a sort of consortium to talk about that, and we're going to be coming to you. And I just wanted to see if there was, if we could be carving out some of that for prevention of sex trafficking.
Absolutely, Council Member Ahmad, and we're going to have Police Commissioner Bethel talk about in detail, but you saw that a lot of the budget increase, as I mentioned earlier, went to ensuring our safety and security. So that's PPD and OEM and other city departments that are on the front lines.
Yeah, so I think that's an excellent thought process. I don't think it requires additional money, just additional focus. We have a great partnership with our federal partners around human trafficking. So that awareness, now I'll be very honest with you, I was not aware during these types of event. We see that increase, so you just raised an awareness that we did not have. And so I'll get back to you as I talk to my colleagues, as we can focus and make that an awareness that we all need to be aware of as we move forward.
Well, thank you. I've already spoken to the State Attorney General, District Attorney, the airport. We're going to talk to the Hotel and Motel Association because they just got hit with $17 million settlement around these issues, and this is the third one in the last few years. So this is a problem in our city. And so I look to work with you to bring this plan together so we can have a safe, fun but safe time for all our visitors and Philadelphians during this time. And I really want to make sure that we have a focus on that, and we'll talk further about that. Thank you, Council President.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. We will be in recess until 1:30, and then we will finish starting with Councilwoman Ketchy-Lazada, Ru Landau, and then we'll start our second round. Thank you very much.